And feel free, those of you who are coming on, to tell us in the chat where you're calling in from, where you're joining us from today. Shannon and I were just talking. We found out that we have between 700 and 800 people who have signed up for this webinar. So we know there are a lot more people who listen to it than show up. And we've already had 3 of our regulars tell us that they are having a conflict today. So we don't know how many people will show up today, but we're going to take as many as are here. So Lisa from Boston, glad to have you with us.
Where's the chat thing?
Should be down at the bottom. And if you scroll across the bottom, you should see where chat is. Should pop up.
You look around the bottom. If you don't see it, it will, if you click on those 3 dots that say more and click on there, you'll see chat will come up probably at the top. And if you click on that, it'll bring it up to your right side of your screen or somewhere on your screen. Everybody's screen's different.
Thanks, Shannon.
Yeah.
There you are. Yeah. And Shannon Judge, we were just discussing that we've started to see that maybe we have between 700 and 800 people signed up for this. So a bigger audience than we knew we had.
Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, gets people a chance to get in here. Looks like we're gonna have 2 Lisas with us today. That doesn't always happen, but we always have 2 Shannons. Shannon Judge, who is one of our coaches, and Shannon D, who runs our office with operations. So we are very, very lucky to have you here. Now, there is a handout affiliated with this, and you can make the handout when I show you the handout. But if you didn't get it, Shannon D, can you put it in the chat?
I sure can. And I will tell you for easy access, if you got the reminder email about an hour ago, if you go in there, there is a button you can click and download the actual handout as well. But I'll also put the link in the chat.
Yeah, and the handout's going to be very important. However, it's something that once you see the handout, it's a series of circles. You're going to be able to make it on your own. You don't have to rely on the one we sent you. So don't panic if you don't have the handout. It will help you follow along, but you can make it as we go. So again, go to the chat if you would like. Tell us where you're from. And to those of you who are listening to the recording, welcome. It's always good to have you, even if it's after the fact. And if you have questions or whatnot, you can always post those on some of the socials that we have. And you can also send us a question at info, I-N-F-O, at soulsalt, SOULSALT.com. Asia, thanks for joining us. Yes, so you won't be able to fully participate, but I know you're going to be listening. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to get started. So I'm going to go to PowerPoint for just a minute and talk through some pieces about reinvention. And be ready, those of you who can interact today, let's make sure that you go to chat and respond to these things, or raise your hand and come on and vocally share with us what you want to say. So let me get this brought up. And can you guys see the PowerPoint? Is that on the screen now? Okay.
Yes.
Getting the yeses. Yes, getting the yeses. All right. So today we're going to be talking about shifting connections. And when we talk about shifting connections, if you want to know the subtext underneath that, it's basically what we're trying to do is find people who can help us see who we really are as that reinvented version of ourselves, and or we're looking for people we can connect with that can help us grow into that next self. So that's a big, broad stroke, because a lot of people could help us see ourselves and assist us to grow into that next spot in a variety of ways. There's not just one way that they can assist us. And the truth is, we cannot recalibrate or reclaim or reinvent our working identity unless we are connected. We cannot do it in isolation. We just can't. We can't do it unless we're in relation with others or through relating with others. So if you have any questions about that, put those in the chat, and Shannon Judge and Shannon D will let me know. And so I'm just going to pause here for just a second and just remind us that isolation during COVID may have taught us this, that we don't grow very far when we're in isolation. And before I go to the next slide, I just want to mention, I'm Lynn Christian, the founder of Soul Salt Inc. We're a coaching company. 1/3 of the people that we coach are career reinventors. So this is definitely a big chunk of the work that we do. Shannon Judge, who's on the call, is the only other person alive today. There are people in the wings waiting, but she's the only person who's certified and working with the reinvention curriculum that we have here at Soul Salt. So she is on here as support. Sometimes she takes us through these webinars. So if you know her, if you don't get to that or haven't gotten to know her yet, please know that she's approachable. And both she and I constantly do discovery calls with people who are interested in knowing if coaching's right for them. So I wanted you to know who Shannon Judge is, because you're connected to us now. You don't have to be in isolation. And then there's Shannon D, who's on these calls, who runs our office. And if you do ever want to interface with us for one reason or another, she'll probably be the first person you talk to. So we don't reinvent in isolation. We do not change and develop who we are in isolation. So your career reinvention story may have these components, and they may or may not happen in this order. But let's just see kind of where this connection might happen. So one of the very first things is you are not aware that you need to change, but something inside of you is not happy. And then the awareness hits you. Oh, I need to change. Now it might just be this passing thing of something's got to give, or I really am feeling the pain of it. Something has to change. Somewhere along the way, the awareness hits you that you must do something differently. There can be a long period of time between that awareness and when you eventually decide that you're going to respond to the awareness. So I'm just curious if anybody on the call would be willing to share how long you think it has been for you, if you're aware, and some of you may not be aware yet, from the moment when you became cognizant that you needed to have a change, and then you actually decided, I'm going to. There's a space. There is a space. I think for me, the first time when I left education, it was a 6-month space between the awareness of something's got to change to I am going to make it happen. So if you see anything coming up in the chat there, Shannon Judge, let me know. So you eventually decide to respond. As soon as you decide to respond and take action, you've begun your journey. The awareness puts you at go, and taking action gets you on the game board to start moving. And one of the places you're going to have to go through is what we call a neutral zone. And a neutral zone is usually a place where you feel lost because you know that the past has to end, but the future's not here yet. And we've had some webinars on what you do in that neutral zone because you can feel untethered. It is ambiguous. It is difficult to deal with ambiguity. So the neutral zone is sometimes one of those dynamics we help our clients get through. We really have to support during that time. Okay, so once you begin, once that you notice, yes, something has to change and I am going to change, that's really where the action begins. So be thinking also, am I at that beginning? Am I ready to put my feet in the starter blocks? And I'm curious if anybody would be willing to tell us where you are in terms of the starter blocks, which is actually taking action. Go ahead. Yes. Rustini, did you have? No. Okay. And Shannon, did we have it? I don't want to keep going if there's some comments in the chat. Well,
no comments yet.
Okay. All right. So once you begin, here's one of the things that you probably notice. The old you, the person that's like, I've got to have something change. And the new you that says, okay, everything has changed. There's a big gap. You can feel that. And so raise your hand and tell me, let's see, how many of you are in that big gap where it's like, I know there's an old me, but I'm not to the new me. Anybody in that gap right now? Yep, Lisa is. Do you see anybody else, Shannon?
Just Lisa, it looks like is raising or thumbs
Yep.
up.
Yep, just okay. Asia is.
Oh,
Okay.
and Asia. Yep.
Asia, Lisa Griggs. Okay. That's the gap. That's where the new me is. Okay. So once you begin to notice something and you see that gap and you feel like you've got to do something in order to close the gap, there are many things that we do, but let me highlight 4 of the things that we take our clients through. Number 1 is you'll need to start exploring possible selves. So we have to identify what those are. And if you have my book, and Shannon can put that in Shannon D can put that in the chat. If you don't have my book, that's a great place to start your reinvention because you find out a lot about these possible selves. Once you find the possible selves, you craft and execute related experiments. You work your way through the neutral zone. And while you're doing all of that, you do this big thing that's in red. Expand and leverage your network. Everybody has one. So this is where it's going to be really handy if we expand our network today. So you'll need the handout for that. And I'll show you in a minute what that looks like. And the first place that we're going to start is we're going to start with you and your connection to self. That meaning your resilience and self-efficacy. So I'm going to stop sharing and pull up the handout. And this is what it looks like. So those of you who are going to make it on the fly, you can see how to.
The link is in the chat too, if they do just want to open it, Lynn.
Okay, the link is in the chat. Let me stop.
Yep.
For some reason I've got
Oh, you can just X out.
Yep. Let me go back. There we go. Okay, now we're going to bring up the handout. Here we go. So everybody should have something like this or needs to have something like this. There we go. You see all the circles. And so the first thing we're going to do is put here self. Let's see if I can get this to work. Hold on. When I practiced this, I got my pen to work and it's now it's not working. So I am going to punt. Here we go. We'll go this way. All right. Can you guys see my whiteboard?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to start with self. So in the center, go ahead and write self. The first thing we want to do when we connect with self is we want to have some resilience. And the resilience comes in many varieties. It's anything that you do for yourself that helps you during the times when stuff is hard to bend with the winds of those things that are hard, but not break. So that might be habits, it might be rituals, and it might be meditation things that you do, anything where you sturdy yourself. So I'm going to give you one that one of my clients is doing right now, and she's calling it Sturdy Myself Activity. And she's a busy mom of 2. Running her own business, being a partner with her husband, being a friend to her friends, and just being a dynamo in her community. And she can spare 1 minute a day going into meditation and just feeling her own strength, her own power, her own connection. So she does 1 minute of meditation. That helps her feel sturdy. There are a lot of things that you can do to build your resilience, the part of you that helps you bend but not break. Some people have a posse of people that they can call. So let's think about right now how you can use your network with self to get self-grounded. So we'd love you to go to the chat and tell us one thing that you can either start doing or one thing you are doing now that builds your resilience. Please go there. We want to hear from you. While you're doing that, there is somebody that's kind of new in my circle of influence that is teaching me about the lightness of being, of holding things lightly in grace. And that assists her to be in a resilient place with self. She just doesn't take herself too seriously. I have another person in my clientele who is giving themselves a practice of no expectations. And that helps them with their resilience. So let's kind of see some of the messages that we have coming up. Regular stretching routine, listening to music, positive audio. Lisa, that's great. Those are excellent things. Positive self-talk, walking in nature. Yes, we're starting to get these. So you want to list out in this first circle or an extension of the first circle, things that you can do or are doing to stay connected to self. This is the first ring in your net of the network. You have to have that ready to go. And that needs to be daily doses, weekly doses. Taking in the arts. Very good, Lisa. Yes. These are the things that we do for self-resilience. Let's go to the next band. And in this next band, what we want to talk about is our inner circle. So the inner circle, think about people that you let in close to your heart. For some of you, that may only be a significant other. For some of you, it might be a partner, a spouse, maybe children. For some of you, it might just be a best friend or a small group of best friends. So think about your inner circle and list the people in that inner circle that you let into as close to you with a barrier around you and them dividing it as anybody gets. Who's as close to you as anybody gets? Start listing those names. And you want to have those names, maybe have a 2 or 3 or how many. Love to hear that. Okay, when life gets you knocked down, you must pivot towards something better that you set your sights on. So for you, daily prayer, yoga, listen to music. This is really great. Overcoming. Yes, very good. Very good. Good things happening in the chat. So look at this inner circle. Now, this is the place where I'm going to have a caveat. This is the place where there's a warning. The people that you put in your inner circle, and it depends upon each person's individual connections with those. But these are the people who have the most to lose if you change. So they can get scared if you're going to change something like your career. So sometimes these are the ties that bind you and anchor you, and sometimes these are ties that blind you. And they're not trying to blind you purposefully or harmfully. They may blind you with messages of please don't change, and sometimes you hear them blatantly and sometimes you don't. So these are the folks where you need to let those ties that bind you and anchor you to yourself stay strong and allow some resistance to people who are resisting you. So you put up a little bit of a barrier when those people are resisting you changing. Okay. And I remember taking a risk at one point in my career of adding another component to Soul Salt. And my partner at the time was really afraid. because she was afraid that was going to take time away from us. And so even though it was the right move to make, she wasn't necessarily supportive, and I could see why. She had good reason. And so I had to work on making sure that it didn't take time away from us. At the same time, not let that bond with her dictate what I did or didn't do with the company. So see if you can relate to that. Okay. And we don't necessarily want to change their mindset. We just need to realize that's the area where those folks may or may not be as helpful. Let's go to the third rung. This would be friends and family that maybe aren't in that intimate circle. And this might also be peers. You might have peers that you've worked with. So this would be connections of individuals. It could even be mentors, extended family. Start listing people who are in your third ring out. There's you in the middle, then that real intimate inner, and then that third ring out. And Lisa, I'm not sure. You are unable to load this whiteboard error. Okay, I'm not sure.
I wonder if it's a version, like a more updated, a less updated version of Zoom.
Could be. It could be. Yeah. Lisa, are you able to see it at least?
I can see like the outer edge, like self, resilience, inner circle. I can't see like
The
what's
circle.
under. Yeah,
Okay.
like what's actually under. I can see like friend, family, inner circle, peer. Yeah.
Okay. So just imagine that there's a circle as we're building it. So we have 3 circles so far. So we have a
Gotcha.
bullseye, another circle, and then a third circle. So all
Gotcha.
you're missing out right now are the circles.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Now, one of the reasons why we want to look at this third area is these people fall into the area of networking where we are able to have their network. Now, back in the 90s, it was estimated that each of these people in this third tier know 250 connections they could offer you. Because of social media, because of the internet exploding, that number is bigger. And I haven't heard anybody come in and say what that number is, maybe because it's infinite now. I don't know. Probably is not infinite, but you get the idea. It's huge. This is good to know that people in the third tier offer you not just connection to them, but they offer you connection to people that they know. And in a moment, we're going to talk about why that's super, super important. And then we'll go to the fourth. So Lisa, we're doing a fourth circle, and we're going to call this people I know. So these are people that you know that you could ping on social media, or maybe you have their contact, but they don't fall into friend, family, mentor, or peer. They're the fourth ring out. And again, they still have that ability to give you 250 plus, times 10, times 100 connections. So start listing some of those people that you know. And you can start, scrolling through your contact list on your phone if you want to. And you can see today is very interactive and pragmatic because we are definitely going to give you a resource, or curate, I should say, a resource that you can use in your reinvention path. And that would be this list of people who are in your network. And we'll talk about how to use them and why you want to use each of them in a moment. So these are people you know. You should have some names there. And then the fifth ring out, people you know of. But you can't really say you know them. Now, what I'm going to challenge you to do is write the names of 3 to 5 people you know of that you actually could contact if you were brave enough. I'm not saying that you have to contact, but they are potential people you could contact because you know of them. You could find a way to connect with them. Maybe there's somebody, a radio personality. Maybe it's an influencer on the social media. Maybe it's a blogger. Maybe it's an author. Maybe it's the owner of a chain of businesses. So there are people out there that you know of. They're in your circle of awareness. Okay, and then we're going to go to another circle. So this would be like the 6th ring out. And this would be the links or the people that my people know. These 250 times 10. That's where they come in. We've talked about them, but now that's just where they come in. And you may not be able to put names there, but some of you may. You may know somebody who has an influencer in their network. You may know somebody who has a famous writer or the CEO of a company or something like that. So people that your people know goes in the 6th ring. Now we're going to talk about how do we access this. So the middle with self, we have to be resilient. So I'm going to ask you to give yourself an assignment. Yes, this is kind of like the 6 degrees of separation, exactly. So the first assignment is you're going to write down something that you're going to keep doing or increase doing or start doing in terms of building your resilience. So you're going to give yourself that assignment because this will help you stay connected to self. We're using your network and we start with self. When you finish, you're going to have 6 action items. You don't have to do all 6, but I'm going to challenge you to do 4 of the 6. And I would say, don't let this one be one that you eliminate. This probably should be one for your own benefit that you keep. Then we're going to go to the inner circle around the bullseye. And that would be the people that are really close to you. Some of you need to have a conversation about this dynamic, about their fear or their concerns. You maybe need to use some radical candor or some honesty. So be thinking about who's in that inner circle that you are going to have a conversation about and see where they come out. Where do they net out in terms of you changing? And what do they need and what do you need? This would be a good time to have a conversation with them to see if there's something that needs to be shifted. And then the 3rd ring with friends, family, peers, and mentors. Let me start reading this. In the 1970s, a Harvard sociologist published what has become a landmark study of how people get their new jobs. Now, some of you are not reinventing to a new job. Some of you are creating your own company or you're creating your own small product line, whatever it is. Some of you are reinventing to be your own boss. But just keep the same concept in mind. So in this study, how people get jobs, what he found and others have confirmed, and it's still true today, even though this was first brought forward in the 70s, most people find their next job or the next person they need to talk to as they're making their personal connections and expanding their network so that they can reinvent. And what's surprising is this study is kind of known as the strength of weak ties study, because those personal contacts that gave the most value to the people finding the new job or reinventing were neither friends, family, or close work associates. They were distant acquaintances. And then among those who got jobs through personal contacts, the great majority had interacted with that contact only occasionally or rarely. So what makes some of these contacts useful when we're reinventing is neither the closeness of the relationship nor the power of that person's position. What's usually helpful is what that person knows, who they know, and when they know it. So when you go to family, peers, mentors in this third tier, one of the key questions you can ask, let's say if you're looking for ideas about what they think you should do with your future, or if you're looking for ideas about who can I talk to? Say, I recently have a career reinvention client in Canada who discovered that she wanted to go back to school and become a certain new thing. She already had one degree, but that her reinvention included a new degree. So we got into that friend, family, peers, and mentors, and she was asking them what they thought about that idea. And she was asking them which programs they knew about online and in-person courses that they would recommend, or if they had somebody in their network that they thought she should talk to. So this third tier is full of access. And the question you can ask is, this is what I'm looking for. Who should I talk to that you know? And Shannon Judge, I'm going to have you put that question in the chat. The question isn't, how can you help me? The question is more like, when you think about what I'm going for, who do you know that I could talk to that would be beneficial for me? So you access them. You don't come to them necessarily for all the advice. You don't ask them to solve the problem for you. But the key here is in that third tier, you start asking them, who do you know? You could also ask that at the second tier. So Shannon Judge just put in there, when you think about what I'm going for, and then you'll have to fill in the blank, this is what I'm going for. Who do you know that I could talk to that would be beneficial for me? It's that simple. Make sure you have that question, because that is the key question, the key element of today's gift to you is using that question or a derivative of it. You do the same with this other group of people that you know, the people that you know of, and that's how you get access to the people that your people know. Now, let me give you an illustration of how this works. And I'm definitely, I'm going to pull this, close the whiteboard and come back. So if you have questions, we'll get to those in a moment, and I'm going to go back to the assignment. So I was a school teacher for 15 years, and I was in a situation where I was dreadfully unhappy. I had loved teaching. I was an award-winning teacher, but parents loved me. I loved the kids. They loved me back. We had so many successful years of graduating sixth graders out of my classroom. It was a very rewarding job. And it was also rewarding because as a single parent, I was able to take the children with me to school. We had the same hours. We were off at the same time. It was a beautiful way to live our life and earn a living for a while. But it became very limited when my children's needs got bigger and my paycheck was actually pretty small. And also the fact that I was getting ready to come out of the closet and I was living in a very conservative market that would have really impaired my ability to stay as a teacher. So I needed to move. And it was very, very difficult. And so I looked around, and these circles literally built this target. And I thought, who's the best networked person that I know? And at the time, her name was Lisa. So I think it's kind of funny that we have two Lisas on the call. So Lisa's showing up today. It's the name of the day. And I went to Lisa and I said, Lisa, I need to leave academics. And I think I need to get into business somewhere. I need to get hired by some company where I can make more money and make a difference. Who would you talk to if you were in my position? So now look at Shannon Judge's question that she put in the chat. Who would you talk to if you were in my position and you needed to make a jump from academics to business? And she said, I think you should talk to my business coach. And I said, what the hell is a business coach? What is that? I had no clue. Now, that was not the only angle I was going through. if you look into these circles, I went to the third tier and I had a really close mentor that I would talk to once a month. I would go to his home on Sunday night and we would have this little fireside chat together. And he was a mentor of mine. He was a millionaire. And he could see I was a struggling school teacher, parent of three, single parent of three. And he would talk to me about the mindset that I needed in order to make more money and move into something that could make me more money. And so monthly we would have this mentoring session. And he taught me a lot. There were books I read. There were things that I studied. There were little exercises that I did that he gave me. So he was helping me change my mindset. But when it really came down to push and shove, I had to find this person in my third tier that sent me to somebody in my sixth tier. And when I walked into that discovery call, the very first call with his coach, I fell in love with her lifestyle. She'd just come off the mountain. She had hiking boots on. She had a cup of tea, and she was living and working out of her home. And so her commute was zero. And then she had her office so decorated how she wanted. I'm in my office now. That gave me the inspiration to have my own office. And I was like, I want her lifestyle. I didn't know that I wanted to be a coach, but I wanted her lifestyle. I wanted her maturity. I wanted her personal growth. I wanted to be able to get up in the morning and have my own schedule and say, if I want to hike today, I hike today. And I come home and have my cup of tea, and then we start whatever we need to do. So she inspired me. She also became my coach. I hired her on the spot, and she assisted me in getting my first corporate job. From there, I learned about coaching from her and started studying it while I worked at Franklin Covey, and eventually the two merged, and I was able to use my coach certification at Franklin Covey and become the director of innovation for Franklin Covey Coaching, which is how I met Shannon D. So the evolution came from one conversation in my third tier to somebody in the sixth tier. And I just asked this question. So there is a story that, and there were other people that I met with. This is the one that I can connect the dots and say, this is how the reinvention occurred for me. In that I reinvented to be a corporate citizen for a while I was working on my coaching, and eventually started Soul Salt and did that full time. So the evolution that you need to make your change, to expand, to see yourself differently, comes from making contacts. So I'm going to ask you to go now to your circles, back to the circles, and give yourself an assignment based on the different tiers. So far, you should have an assignment to self. You should have assignment with a significant other or somebody that's in that circle. You should have an assignment. Now think about the people that are friends and families and peers and mentors that you know well. What's something you can ask of them to support you? Write that down now. And then we go with people that you know. We go out to people that you know of. Give yourself an assignment. What will you do to interact with people that you know that aren't friends, family, peers? They're in the fourth tier. And let's go to the fifth tier. People that you know of. I think Shannon Judge, you have a really good story with that one where you reached into people that you know of, but they didn't necessarily know you. I don't know if you want to share that, but it might be helpful.
What are you thinking of, Lynn?
The company that you knew of, and then you ran into them at a store or something.
Oh yeah, a company that I have purchased from and knew, and then I just randomly passed them and stopped in and made a personal connection, not expecting to, and then reached out about a business opportunity.
Yeah. And so those are people you knew of, but didn't know, and they didn't know
Yes.
you. And now we're still trying to figure out what the rest of the story is going to be, but at least they've been contacted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're going to go to the sixth tier where these are people that you don't know yet. And I'm going to ask you to assign yourself one thing you can do. Maybe it's reaching into fourth tier and fifth tier connections to ask for these, but assign yourself a way to get to those people that you don't know, but they might help you find something you need. And it doesn't have to be reinvention related. We're just asking you today to explore, how do you use this network of people? Because as it expands, so do your possibilities of support when you need it, especially support when you need it when you're reinventing. And then I'm going to close up the whiteboard and ask you, if you're willing to commit, go to the chat and tell us the 4 things you're going to do in the next 7 days based on what we said today. And it doesn't have to be completely related to what we said, but it probably will be in some way, to help you get more support or to help you find that next step, whatever it is that you're needing in your reinvention. 4 things that you can do in the next 7 days that helps you expand your network. Remember, we don't evolve in isolation. We only evolve in connection and relating. So Shannon Judge and I will watch for comments because we'd love to see what you're going to share. These are your commitments to yourself. And then after we have some of those shared, we will bring it open for discussion. Talk about what you need to ask us today. Hopefully everybody's typing up their answers because we want to see those commitments. When you say them out loud and put them in writing, you're like 50% closer to getting them done. Anything there yet? People might be shy today.
Lisa says she's been reaching out to people in the peer mentor circle and having coffee chats. I love
Nice.
that.
That's really good. Thanks, Lisa. Hey, are there questions? No questions today. All right, here's what we're going to leave you with. Realizing that you can always go to info@soulsalt.com, direct a question to myself or Shannon Judge. We'll be happy to respond. All transformation, any kind of transformation that you're trying to make, be it career, be it your personal identity, be it moving away from one habit to another, in nature, as in human societies, they require protected space for change. Let me give you some examples. There's the cocoon, there's the chrysalis, there's the womb. There's even make-believe spaces that we come up with, sometimes with that significant person in our life, where we just make this little bubble around us, and only we know what we know. There are apprenticeships where you step in and you work by the side of somebody. There are internships. When we have these types of bonds, they give us psychological safety. So when we are in career transition, we require psychological safety. And the things that you've written today are designed to assist you in giving yourself more of that safety. So my admonition and Shannon Judge's admonition to you is, use this net, fall into it, let it catch you, let it hold you, let it support you, let it nurture you by asking of it what you need. There'll be a time in the future after you've received what you needed and you have your feet on the ground, that if you really did your work, gratitude will turn you around and you'll give back to that network. So don't try to give back right now. If you're really in need and you're really transitioning, fall into these people, fall into these people. So I'm glad that question, yeah, Rossini, I'm glad that question helped you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But go ahead and find new people you can ask that of. All right. with that, we'll say goodbye. Join us next month, if you will. We're always here. We're always on your sideline. And again, don't be afraid to reach out and get a discovery call. We so appreciate your presence. We really worked it today, and best wishes with everything. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thanks, Lynn.
Take care.